All right, we got to check, do the pre-flight check here. Hey friends, today is Wednesday, October 2nd. 4 days left until we are 1 year old. PatternCast is 1 year old. And 4 days left for the special that we're having on PatternCast yearly memberships and quarterly memberships. For both the crypto version of PatternCast and the traditional markets. The traditional markets trade futures, forex, and stocks or equities. And the crypto right now is only trading Bitcoin. However, we have in the works Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple. We'll see how that goes. But we've been having fantastic success. Oh, pre-check. How do I know that I'm even reaching you if I don't do a pre-check? The pre-check, flight check, audio input capture, go. Making sure that I hit that red line just every time. Bang. Okay, right on. Big head, go. Charts, go. Switchback, big head, go. We are a go. Fantastic. Well, today, there's not a trade to report today, and that's actually a good thing because no position is a position. That is crucial for a successful trader to understand. No position is a position. Why is there no position? That's because there is no determinate direction. There is no edge in taking a direction either up or down. At least right now. And how do I determine that? I determine that by a few ways. One is, we can look at volume profile. When we look at volume profile, we're sitting on a rather large node. When I say a node, what I'm referring to are these, volume profile here is on the right. I'm referring to these big bumps. And you can see the most prominent big bump, or volume node. We are currently sitting right on that. And generally, and we're starting to develop what's called a balance around that node. And that's when we move back and forth, or up and down, around that. Now, this is a relatively tight node. However, it's a historic node. If you, at least in the near term, you can see that back in May and June, we established this node, a good portion of its base, and the high volume that occurred at a price of about $79.45. So what we can say about this is that for whatever reason, the market is finding that there is value at this time in Bitcoin at $79.45 and, plus or minus a few hundred points. As high as, say, 8,300 and as low as 7,600. This is where Bitcoin feels comfortable right now. It's a very tight node. We're moving sideways. Now this is a daily chart. If we move into, say, a 4-hour chart, that starts becoming even more pronounced in terms of the sideways motion here. We're going sideways. We're working within a range. Now, if we were to look at this in a little bit more detail, perhaps apply a regression channel to it to get a sense of, is there a direction? Is it, in fact, no direction, or are we going down? That's about as sideways as you can imagine. Now, this is a 2 standard deviation regression channel. And essentially what that means is that all the movement within here is comprised within 2 standard deviations of price, at least in this best fit mode here. What we're saying here is that 95% of all prices since the beginning of this feature here, which started on September 24th, it is now October 2nd, So over the last week and a few days, 95% of all price action has fallen within that. Now, we could switch this to one standard deviation and then get a feel for, tightening up here. And this would represent about 67% of all price action has fallen within this area. That's what one standard deviation would look like. Now there is, we're moving up and down through this, but there still really is no discernible breakout, breakdown, particularly after this big break that we had out of the very, very large descending triangle that we had that most of the market was focused on. Now, some people might consider this from a chart pattern point of view a potential flag. So here we have the sharp move down, which is considered the pole of the flag, and then this move sideways that can be easily discernible through, maybe by putting a feature around it, like a rectangle. And then there we have a flag. Now a flag, when the flag is at the bottom of the pole, it's considered bearish, a bearish continuation feature or potential. If the pole were going up, in other words, if we went up and then we started consolidating and created a feature like this, that would be called a bullish flag. Why am I telling you all of this? Now, you look at this and you say, okay, we have a flag. And most people would immediately jump on, well, it's a continuation pattern. That means that once we find a resolution to this, there's a likelihood that we will be moving down. But what are the odds? What do you know about that? What are the actual odds? And can you, for the life of you, tell us when that flag is likely to find resolution? In other words, it's going to actually break out, either break up or break down. And what are the odds behind it breaking up or breaking down? Once you find the odds of whether it's going to break up or break down, then at least you can perhaps lay down some bets or be prepared to take a position either long or short and bet size appropriately based on those odds. But the problem here is that you don't know when it's going to happen. Now, there are some other features within price action and also within your the three primary pieces of information that you have here, and that's volume, time, and price, where you can estimate where we are in terms of coming to some kind of resolution. And really the only real feature that you have with this type of flag when it's creating a sideways channel, and this isn't a perfect flag, by the way, because most continuation flags, at least bearish ones, tend to tilt up. Yes, they tend to tilt up. And this one isn't tilting up. If anything, it's tilting slightly down, as we can see through the regression channel, has a slight downward tilt. So it's not a perfect formation of a flag. What we could do, and I'll take another look at it just so you can see that. So we have a rectangle around that to define the flag. We can see the regression channel is slightly, ever so slightly moving down, where a normal, everyday, let's see, bullish flag would look something like this. But we definitely don't have that. No one can say that that's what we have here. We have something more like this. So one way we can guesstimate when this flag might be finding some kind of resolution is to find whether or not there is a waning in the action, in the participation in this feature here. We're going sideways, so people don't have any particular direction. There aren't real strong players in the market saying, hey, I want to take a position here. There are intermediate ones, and maybe they're just trying to test things. But one way we can look at it is by looking at the volume and whether or not it is staying steady or has any discernible pattern. Is it overall, is volume decreasing? And as volume decreases, we find that basically that means that the market is sort of pulling back and taking a wait-see what's going to happen. And you can look at this volume and you can say that in general it is decreasing, but not to any significant degree. There is definitely, maybe if we applied a moving average to this, it might be a little bit more easy to see. But even the moving average isn't really showing us much. You could make up something and say, well, look, we have a high here, and then it's a lower here, and therefore it's decreasing. But it's not. You look at the average, and the average also looks like it's going sideways. So that's really not telling us anything. Volume profile is telling us here that the feature, where the market is actually finding value, is in this node. The node here, and I'll maybe I can draw another thing around this, and let's say that this is our current node right there. And the edges of the volume profile are significant because they lead into an abyss, a lack of volume. Places where the market isn't comfortable right now, they don't find any value. The last place we found value is up here in the 10,300 range. And let's take a look at that as well. Sorry, I'm online right now. That's okay. Bye. We could take a rectangle and sort of define an area, upper and lower limit bounds. Where's the edge? The edge detection on a volume node is very important because that's where you're going to find support and resistance. A lot of people say, well, the support resistance is on the POC, and that's not true. It's simply not true. That is the launching off point, the edge of that feature. How's it going? I am actually doing my live show right now. How you doing? I had a question for you. And that's concerning the extended data. Can you provide that for me? Or basically, I guess I already have it. Or does it get regenerated for each day so that I can then, kind of refer to it in the show? The full set of data that we were talking about the other day. So I want to use it as to refer to it in my live show every day so that I can start talking about odds of things and then get people really kind of hyped up on this whole concept. Okay. No, I get it. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that because I think that would really be enlightening to people. And yeah. Well, and that's what I've been talking about right now, that Bitcoin's going nowhere. And PatternCast really has not, has kind of enlightened that, has kind of elucidated that by, yeah, yeah, yeah. And no position is definitely a position in that case. That's probably your best odds. All right, thanks. Bye. The architect of PatternCast. I was going on and on about the volume profile only because it's kind of a intermediary exercise here. We can talk about volume profile and how we use it, but the reality is that PatternCast is keeping us out of trading right now for the past 2 days. And so some people might say, well, what good is that? I mean, what good is it if you don't get trades? You have a trade service and you're not giving signals. No, actually, it's quite good because we gave the good signals, the signal for this coming down, and 1 or 2 other signals that worked in here that worked perfectly. Most of them have been so exaggerated that price never really met that muster. I can give you an example of this guy right here. We did have a signal here yesterday, which was really on October 1st, but we never really met either the upper or lower entries. And so, in essence, PatternCast is saying that there is no signal. So, PatternCast has kept us out of trades for the past 4 days, but got us in trades when there was real edge. And I can't tell you how valuable that is in a trading system. I mean, if you're sitting here trying to make up whether or not you should be getting into a trade or not, whether that you need to be into the market, otherwise somehow you're less of a person. PatternCast will set you straight. It'll keep you out of the market when you don't really need to be in the market. And right now, you don't need to be in the market. There is nothing coming up on the horizon that is giving us anything of value. So that's one of the reasons why I was talking about volume profile at this point, because now is a good time to start sort of reviewing, how you're going to manage your trades once you do get into them. Now, we don't manage trades in terms of risk. Managing trades in terms of risk is essentially the same as managing losers. It's managing when you're going to lose. What we do is as a matter of fact, we don't set stops for the most part, at least not on any individual trade. We only manage profits. When you have a system that can give you an edge, let you know that you're going to potentially profit 85-90% of the time, that somewhere within that next 4 days you're going to have opportunity, then that's when you start managing profits instead of managing risk. Because the risk is taken out. That's not entirely true. There's always risk. But it's overshadowed by the fact that we're in a trade and we know what our edge is. That doesn't mean that there isn't any risk. It means that I can, it's, you have 2 sides of this coin here. You have the losing side and the winning side. And I can choose to either focus on the glass half empty or the glass half full. Most traditional ways of looking at markets is focusing on the glass half empty. And that's why most people lose. But if I focus on the glass half full, because that is where the opportunity is, then I am going to profit more often than not. And so that's what we do, and that's what PatternCast allows us to do. So there you go. There's your lesson for today. And we can do that because right now, I'm not I'm not drinking the water. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't have a glass in the game here because I'm completely out of the game. But when I'm in the game, I know that I can focus on the glass half full mode of trading here. I can start thinking about how I'm going to enter my position, how I'm going to manage this position. If it goes against me, how am I going to average in and maybe reduce my cost basis or improve my cost basis, rather than figuring out, oh my God, where am I going to set my stop so I can get out of this thing? Because you don't know. The only reason you would do that is if you don't know your edge. That's the only reason why you would do that. So a lot of people come on here and in the chat they're giving me all this technical analysis mumbo jumbo, and I say bunk. Double bottom retesting neckline, in my opinion. Come on, Chili Willy. What the fuck does that mean? Where's the edge in that? Are you saying a double bottom actually has an edge? Do you know what it is? Will a double bottom determine direction 40% of the time? 55% of the time? 62, 67, 82, 94, 13. Which is it? Do you know? You don't know. You only think that a double bottom has validity because some other people told you that it does, or there's some sort of, punditry out there that's telling you that a double bottom has validity, that it has edge. But even they cannot define it. Even they cannot define it. The best books that are out there cannot define a double bottom edge. And particularly when you don't know the context around it. Who has done the research? So Easy Life wants to know, how frequent on average does PatternCast provide trade signals? That largely depends on the market, but let's say that on average. Let's take a look at, since the Bitcoin service has been in operation since August 14th up until today. Today is October 1st. So we have about a month and a half worth of data. We've had 19 trades. 17 of them have been profitable. So 19 out of that many days, that's not bad. About a trade every 2 days. Pretty good. The traditional service, over the course of a year, we've had about 320 trades, so almost a trade every day, on average. The PatternCast just added another winner to its record, right? Yes, it did. A couple of them in the past week. But today, the last few days, there hasn't been anything to add. So what I was talking about when I was talking to my partner there about the data, the actual data that appears. In the future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking the actual data that comes from PatternCast, that comes from this pattern recognition machine that has done the complete survey of all patterns that have ever existed, or the ones that it can discern, which could be thousands and thousands and thousands of different patterns. And on any day, I will be able to give you all the odds and all the scenarios that could possibly happen and what you can expect, or at least what has happened in the past. I can take a look at the 100% case, the 80% case, the 90, the 60, whatever. What would happen if we pulled back, say, 200 points, 300 points, 500 points? What would happen if we dropped 600 points? Given that particular pattern that is just set up. I can provide all of that, and I will start elucidating that in future shows. It's kind of hard to do it when you don't have a pattern that has been identified. Right now, that's what's happened. We are in a point where we have not identified a pattern today. Yesterday, we identified a pattern. It didn't work out. So in the future, that's what I'll be doing. Every time that we identify a pattern, or a PatternCast identifies it, I will be able to provide to you a complete set of all the possible scenarios that have happened in the past and what their frequency of happening. And then from that, we can start making some intelligent decisions on what to do. Now, this isn't necessarily what we provide in the trade room. What we do is we take the sweet spot, the best combination of percent wins and return on capital. And then that's what we provide. And what I'm talking about is a number of different, we can provide all the scenarios that could happen and what their percent win and return on capital is. Not the sweet spot, but any combination of that. So you could ask me, well, what happens if I limit myself to 80% wins instead of 100% wins? Do I get a better return on capital? Is there more likelihood that we'll be pulling back to, say, 200 points or 300 points? Imagine if you had that kind of data, that kind of insight. That is what PatternCast provides us. It finds these patterns and then provides us with this data dump of what could happen. And the quarterly memberships for PatternCast. If you use the word crypto for the yearly, then you'll get an additional amount off, and providing, just an incredible deal on this thing that you'll likely make up that entire yearly membership in your first 1 or 2 trades. Think of what it could do for you if, you have an edge where 90% of the trades, and that's exactly what we're dealing with right now, 90%. That's so we've had 19 trades. So in 17 winners. Actually, it's more than that now. It would be 18 divided by 20. So we are 90%, exactly 90%. And we expect, we're not expecting 90%, although it could happen. But we expect something close to that because our experience with 1 year of operation of the traditional markets, which we think is actually a weaker version of PatternCast only because of the incongruent data that we're given. And what I mean by that is that every weekend, futures go to sleep. Stocks go to sleep every weekend and at night in the morning. And so we don't have a full cast of data to be able to analyze, whereas in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, it's open 24/7. And PatternCast can see more well-defined patterns. It can see more patterns. and for that reason, I think that it's going to perform better. The traditional PatternCast is about 84%. Still damn good. All right. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the future. Again, 4 days left. 4 days. Thank you very much. Please hit the like button. And if you can, afterwards, comment on the video. Share this video with your friends. And we'll see you next video.